Let's get into some NFL guys before we say goodbye. The NFL franchise tag window begins today. Teams have until March 9th, 4 p.m. Eastern to place that tag on their most valuable player. Once again, Dak, a target for the NFL franchise tag going into the 2021 season. He could be the second quarterback to be franchise tagged second year in a row. We know the other is Kirk Cousins. Let's bring in my guy, Luis. Where is he? Louis, there he is, Louis Riddick.
Yeah.
Monday Night Football fame.
Pull up the 3 box so I can see Max when I'm talking to him. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. We saw you on Get Up this morning.
Actually, I want to.
Must be very good.
Actually, I want to see
Everyone
Stephen A's face too. Yeah, I like that.
Nah.
All right, you got it all. I'm going to come to you here first, Louis, since I asked the guys this earlier. Louis, tell me this. What do you think? Should this be Dak's last year playing under the franchise tag if they tag him again his last year in Dallas?
So it will be his last year in Dallas, Molly, if they tag him and they don't strike a long-term deal, because in 2022, they just won't be able to afford him. Look, Dak's going to win here regardless of how this turns out. Whether he's either going to cash in for $70 million over 2 years, or they're going to wind up offering him some kind of deal that probably comes in right around 40 per year, 5 years, 200 million, something like that in order to get him long-term, or he's going to hit the free agency market in 2022, and he's going to cash in then. Either way, look, it's this. No long-term deal this year. In a year's time, Dak is gone. Long-term deal this year, then hey, then they're rolling. Then they just have to figure out how to manage the rest of their roster. But you know what? The head-scratching part about all this is that we're even talking about, whether or not that Dak Prescott could be a part of the Dallas Cowboys in a year from now, in a calendar year from now, because it really doesn't make any sense. And if really the sticking point to getting a long-term deal has been the number of years in the contract, I mean, that really is just an egregious mistake on the part of the Dallas Cowboys, because ultimately the longer you play this out, the more the leverage has shifted to the player anyway. So you probably should have gone ahead and relented and given in to him in the first place, or jacked up the average per year in the guaranteed money on a 5-year deal to the point where he would say, hey, you know what, forget about 4 years. I'll take this 5-year deal and just make him one of the highest paid players. Either way, Dak's winning. Dak's going to continue winning. And right now, Dallas is probably in full-blown panic mode.
Go ahead, Matt.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Louis, which is why I would say, hell no, this shouldn't be Dak's last year in Dallas. If they franchise him, he's winning. I mean, he'll have gotten, as soon as he signs the franchise, that's $70 million in 2 years, guaranteed. He got hurt last year early, got his whole almost $2 million. If he got hurt early again this year, he gets the whole $37 million. That's $70 million, and he barely even played if that were to happen. And then he's set up for over 50 next year if they wanted to franchise him again, which counts all against the cap that year, because you can't prorate it like you can the signing bonus in a long-term deal, which the Cowboys can't afford to do. So that means at that point, Louis, his price went up. If they franchised him this year, and right now we know where this is going, if he wants 3 at 40 a year, they're going to have to give it to him. But that's today's price tag. Tomorrow's price tag is significantly more, because if they imagine I'm going to sign this right here. I count like 20-something% against your cap, and I got 54 million coming this year. So why would I now sign a 3-year deal for $120? No, it's more than that. So that means the Cowboys have no choice. What's bizarre to me about all this, Stephen A., is the Cowboys have sort of negotiated against their own best interest here. Like at a certain point in the negotiation, you have to look and go, it's only going to get worse from here. And yet their behavior is irrational, because every step they take makes Dak more expensive. They're paying Dak more by doing this. I don't get it.
For me, we can throw out all the numbers, and we all know it. We have a research department that gives us a lot of this stuff, plus we do our own research. We know that he's going to count $37 million if they franchise tag him. Obviously, if they franchise tag him for a second consecutive year, going into year 3, he's not going to be there, because you can't franchise tag him again, because he's going to cost him over $50 million. He's going to take up about 20% of the cap. We know all of that, okay? Here's what resonates with me. And I said this, and I know it makes people uncomfortable. I don't give a damn. It does not matter to me. If this were Tony Romo, would we be having this conversation? Chances are no. We saw Dak Prescott in 2019. He threw 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. He completed better than 65% of his passes. The last 3 years, 67%, 65%. This year, 5 games in, or 4.5 games before he got hurt, he was completing 68% of his passes. He was flat out balling. They were one of the top 3 offenses in the league when he was playing. When he went down, they nosedived. We get all of that. And my point is that when you consider that along with the model citizen that he has been, I mean, a virtual umbilical cord to Jerry Jones during the whole Colin Kaepernick kneeling for the national anthem, during the whole social justice issue. Doesn't matter what. This dude has been a model of consistency. He showed up to work. He produced. It was back page news when the dude couldn't make practice one day. He didn't miss the game. But because he missed a practice, it was back page news. Okay? That's how the reliable and trustworthy and productive this guy has been. Not just throwing the football, not even just running the football from the quarterback position, because he's got some wheels on him. His leadership ability inside that locker room, his leadership in the community, the face of America's team, this franchise. And from the time that he walked through the doors and was busting everybody's butt and doing it up in preseason of his rookie year, Jerry Jones was reluctant to hand the realms to him then. He's been reluctant ever since. He's been reluctant and hesitant to make a long-term commitment in this guy. And all we do is talk about numbers. No one has looked Jerry Jones in the face and challenged him. Why? If this were Tony Romo, what would you do? Why would this guy? What's the problem? What's the alternative, Andy Dalton? What's the alternative? Where are you going? You saw what Ezekiel Elliott did without him. Last year, we were asking what the hell happened to Ezekiel Elliott. And then we had to reach and look at the offensive line and say, okay, problematic there. We saw their defense nosedive because Mike McCarthy decides to bring in a guy that last time we saw him, he was in Atlanta in 2014 with the 31st ranked offense. But guess what? We weren't talking about it that much when Dak Prescott was in the lineup. Even when they were en route to going 2-3. Why? Because they were averaging over 30 points a game and Dak Prescott was doing his thing. And still there's no contract. Why? Why? Why this guy? Why doesn't Jerry Jones? Why hasn't somebody pinned Jerry Jones down to explain that? You got a guy that conducts himself the way that he conducts himself and plays the way that he plays and leads the way that he leads. And let's get this straight. You're talking about, oh my goodness, well, here's the money. And Dak Prescott wants to sign a 4-year deal. You're 78 years old. You ain't won in 25 years, a quarter century. You're 78. You're talking about your own mortality. Time's running out. Okay? And at 78 years of age, this man wants to commit to a 4-year deal coming in the last season. And you said, no, we want you for 5. Really? Really? When are we going to talk about this? Why are we just looking at numbers? There's something else going on here, Louis Riddick. There's something else going on here. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, man. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right, it doesn't. And look, I mean, all the points that you're making that lead to this question of why hasn't this been done? I mean, when you look at the numbers and you know where they need to be, when you look at the subjective evaluation of Dak Prescott on the football field and what he has done, the objective evaluation of Dak Prescott relative to everyone else and where he should stack up, this really does seem like one of these situations that this should be a simple fix. This should be a simple fix. And I was just talking to people who negotiate contracts for a living before I came on this show and said, hey, and I'm like, look, where does this go from here? Where does this really go from here? Why hasn't this gotten done? And the one thing they reminded me of was this. Look, it always takes 2 to make a deal. It always takes 2. The prevailing, I should say, sentiment out there is the fact that Dallas wanted 5, Dak wanted 4. I just have a hard time believing that it's that 1 year was what kept this deal from getting done. There has to be more to it than that. On somebody's behalf, there has to be more to it than that. Who is driving the bus on Dak's side? What exactly is a deal-making number, deal-making terms? What is it? And this individual told me, look, $200 million, 5 years, done. Are you going to take that or aren't you? Because from there, if you're not going to take that, if you're not going to take $40 million per year, guarantee $100 million at signing, have it ramp up to where, it's essentially at some point, for all intents and purposes, $150 million of it becomes essentially guaranteed. If you're not going to take that, then we have to figure out a way to move on from you. Because I don't get it, and everyone else who I talk to doesn't get it either. It can't be just the 1 year. Well, I don't know what the other reasons could be, but it can't be just because of 1 year, because it really doesn't make sense.
That's exactly what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense.
At this point, it doesn't make sense. I suspect that once upon a time, not all that long ago, Jerry Jones was thinking, you know what, we're probably not going to fall off that hard with Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton's pretty good, and maybe didn't really believe Dak was as good as he is. I thought they would fall off. I didn't know how hard. So everything that could have been leveraged for Dak broke in his direction. And at this point, the Cowboys have to recognize, even if they thought they had a sound strategy, it backfired. Dak's got all the leverage, just like once upon a time, Emmitt Smith, Stephen A. You know, he doesn't play a couple games, they lose, now he's got the leverage. The Cowboys going to have to give in, right? Like, they're going to have to give in now.
But, Max, stay with me. That's where I'm going. The Emmitt Smith, you're a Super Bowl champion. You want to defend your crown. Jimmy Johnson wants Emmitt Smith. What happened? It wasn't just that they went 0-2 to start that season. It's that in the post-game press conference, and you remember this vividly, Louis Riddick. Okay, put me up on that 3 screen. I want to look at Louis Riddick here. You remember this? Jimmy Johnson goes, and he throws up his hands, and he has nothing to say. He's absolutely speechless because it made no sense, and it was then the reaction from Jimmy Johnson that ultimately said to let Jerry Jones say. And I'm telling you right now, listen, I've been in this business report for over 25 years. I have never seen somebody more ticked off at a press conference for their own contract signing than Emmitt Smith because he was so offended it came to that. You just brought up, Max, Jerry Jones must have a plan. Well, the plan that he had involving Andy Dalton was fresh off of Dak Prescott throwing for 4,900 plus yards, throwing 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and you still have the mindset, well, let me see what this backup does when you saw what he did in Cincinnati for 9 years and it didn't compare to Dak Prescott. It makes no sense. So for Jerry Jones, to me, I am appalled that no one has been able to have him in front of them and to say, could you explain that? Would that have happened to Tony Romo? Would you have done that to him? Why this guy? Why? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. And no one has said to him, why that guy? They keep talking about numbers. No, Jerry, why that guy? Because you wouldn't have done this to Tony Romo. You wouldn't have done this to him. You wouldn't have done this to Troy Aikman. You wouldn't have done this to him, even though Troy Aikman is a 3-time Super Bowl champion. I'm just saying, why that guy? Somebody needs to ask Jerry Jones that question. I want to know, why are you doing that to Dak Prescott? Of all people, why him? That's the question to ask Jerry Jones. That's what we need an answer for. It makes no damn sense.
And in the end, that's going to win anyway.
Tens of millions, Jerry did for sure.